You have probably heard what kind of information Russian propaganda spreads about your visits to Prague and other European cities. Ukrainians understand that this is not true, but let's go through those fake accusations that people in Czechia and Europe may believe in. You've been traveling around Europe and now you've come to Prague to invite Ukrainian men to the army?
No. There are two goals for the project we've come here with: to reduce the gap between civilians and military people. Our main goal is to communicate with people about stereotypes that have appeared and some pressing issues. The highlight of our tour is that people can talk to active military personnel and learn information directly from them.
Another myth that Russian propaganda in the Czech Republic has been popularizing is that you have come to recruit foreigners to the Ukrainian army. There are even warnings for Czechs and Europeans in general not to attend meetings with you. How would you respond to such accusations?
As we know, recruitment is prohibited by law. We did not come here to break the law. We came here with our own purpose and project.
Could you tell us a little bit more about this project and what will happen at your meetings with people? Because another myth is that you came here to promote the war.
No, we didn't come here to promote the war, but to remind about the events taking place in Ukraine, so the people would understand that we are at war and that they need to join in to help. And just to bring this message to Ukrainians who care, even for Europeans, so that they understand if Ukraine fails, it will be a disaster. We'll also try to reach European audience. We are communicating not only with Ukrainians. We need to try and bring accurate information to Europeans about what is happening. Because if Ukrainians follow some social media and know more or less where the truth is, Europeans consume all the information they see. They do not understand at all, and maybe if they hear news and information from us, they may change their opinion. As an example, we see this propaganda you mentioned. Europeans believe it simply because there was no more information.
As a result of such propaganda, your visits were cancelled in some European cities. Did you receive any explanations about why they were cancelled? What was the reason?
As far as we know, this happened because of security measures, such as security for visitors, because organizers of our visits received threats and there were protests. So the visits were cancelled due to security measures, not to expose people to danger, and also because of far-left radical movements. For example, in France, they blew up the railroad. They state that all our events are forced upon them, but there is no truth in this.
Do you know from whom these threats came to the organizers? From these movements or perhaps from the citizens of the countries where your meetings were supposed to take place?
We didn't talk about it with the organizers in such detail. We are ordinary fighters. We were told by people who were talking to the organizers that they showed those threats, but we don't know from whom they were received. They should be taken care of by special services of their respective countries. We are just ordinary fighters. I want to emphasize again that it is not just a story on the internet that we are making excuses about security measures. But I would like to see the people who would want to come to an event when they are thrown stones at threatened, even when someone is protesting with a poster next to you. Security measures are not a joke, it's a true story. We personally do not care about such threats. We experienced so much that it's just a drop in the ocean for us. But for people who are currently in Europe, it is a real danger.
We are very glad that you came to Prague and that the meeting wasn't cancelled here. Do you have any specific messages that you will deliver in Prague or for the Czechs, since this country helps Ukraine a lot? And who are you expecting to see at the meeting?
Firstly, we want to talk to Ukrainians, people who live here, to tell them about everything that is happening now during the war, how difficult the situation is now. There is a problem with the lack of shells. Ukrainians are our voice here in Europe, and I hope we will have a very meaningful dialogue with them, very meaningful questions, so they will understand why we came here. First of all, they will ask us questions, and we cannot know what exactly will happen because they ask what they are interested in, and we tell them what we know.
At similar meetings of the same format, when you talked to people, what questions did they ask you most often?
I think the most frequent one is about training the troops. How the whole process happens from when a person just enters the army to the moment of going to the front line. People ask about this all the time. There were a lot of questions about preparation itself and how it goes. All people think, for example, that if they join an assault brigade, they will also participate in assaults. But in reality, there are a lot of jobs in our brigade that a person can occupy and not be at the front line directly. For example, being responsible for the supply. A lot of jobs are needed, and you can just take a look at our brigade. We have 7 non-combat positions for 1 assault infantryman. Not all people participate in combat. You can be useful in the army in many more ways. And this question interests people, a structure of the armed forces in general as well. There are also separate categories of stupid questions about politics, but we are just soldiers. People ask us about our program called Test Week, when a civilian can come and try out different roles for free, and then they have an understanding of how it works. This is done to reduce this gap between the military and civilians. And people already have at least some understanding of how things work. Some questions are about stories, about our lives and about military adventures. In every meeting, someone always asks to tell a good story. Everyone always wants a good story.
I think in the Czech Republic you will also hear such a question because Czechs are very fond of humor, and the military has a lot of black humor. Will you tell people any anecdotes or jokes?
We'll see. We cannot predict who will come to the meeting, what they will ask about and want to hear.
Thank you very much for your work.